This week on the Wittering Podcast, Andy is joined by Paul for some top quality chat that includes poking holes in the Great Wall of China.
It's not a particularly smart embattlement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You've got it.
On every level, it's not a good idea.
No. You'll never get over this wall unless you go through the doors.
Exactly right.
Followed by insights and opinions about our current political systems.
The one thing politics is not about, it's about facts.
I need to reassess, do I need to go to Whitehall and burn elements of it down? And find out who attacked Andy with what. When he got out of the van, he had it in one hand, he was waving it at me. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Wittering Podcast, episode 11. And I'm delighted to say I am joined by my old mucker, Paul. Paul, it's been a few months since we've done a podcast together.
Indeed.
How are you?
I'm very well. And your good self?
Yeah, I'm good. Actually, and who are you? Because some people might not know who you are.
I am Paul, your old mucker.
Is that all we're getting?
It's all we need.
Okay, fine.
My background is utterly unimportant, really, isn't it?
Well, it may be unimportant, but now it's also mysterious and fascinating, and which is very good. So
it's not like you to overblow something.
Overblow. I like that. I don't know. It's like the overhung. Anyway, you asked me how I was, and
yes.
As I think I've just demonstrated, I'm just 2 weeks into doing a keto diet and also not drinking a drop of alcohol. And what happens, but we always forget in the house, is that I go from a sort of quite dour, moody, individual to a hyper, total wittering, no internal dialogue. It's all external buffoon, one might argue.
Over what space of time does this shift occur?
It kind of is really mysterious because I don't keep notes on it, and you kind of forget that it happens. And so each time, my wife and I are like, "Oh God, this happens." It's almost like when you have your second kid and you're reading the book every day, day 14 of your pregnancy, and you're reading it in bed tonight. This is happening inside your body, and the fetus is doing this. And then as you get to like day 180, you're going, "Fucking hell, that sounds painful." And you've completely forgotten what you went through with the first pregnancy. I think some way of shape or form of nature ensuring that you might do it again. And so it's almost, you kind of forget. And then it's
so
the same thing.
In terms of your fetal development with keto and alcohol deprivation, how fast does this shift occur? Is it like the day, an afternoon, a minute? As soon as you throw the final bottle of Krabby's alcoholic ginger beer, we know you drink it, into the waste stuff, into the bin. Is that, and you bang? When do you go from like into hyper witterer?
So this time I think it's probably been like 7 days, and I think the secret is no alcohol, but I do that quite often. But it's also no processed food.
Right.
So it's some kind of thing.
But keto's actually is low carb, isn't it?
Yeah,
keto essentially is animal fats and
absolutely. My understanding of it is very poor. I read Ivor Cummins' book and I read the exposition about the fallacy.
Sorry, did you just read the chapter headings and you go, right, I understand what to do now?
No, almost. That's my normal approach to research and becoming an expert. But this was like reading the fallacies involved in the whole food industry, the report written in the 50s, and then going, that makes sense. And I'll try this keto, and then flipping to the recipe bit and going, oh, what? So I get to get a pork tenderloin and put some Gruyere in it, and then put a different type of ham on top of that, and then some cheddar on top of that. Roll it up, put it in the oven, and eat that. I can have veg if I want. I can live with bacon and avocado. So yeah, but it's mostly just I think the Paleolithic notion that if it didn't exist, however many thousands of years ago, the Paleolithic period was.
Can I just reach for the bullshit buzzer a second?
Yeah, of course.
Just for a fraction. And it's not about you, but this idea, this notion about I eat what the caveman eats. I would just bollocks. It's patent bollocks because back then, I'll give you an example. Right, back then, a tomato is not what a tomato is today. Back then, a tomato was fucking inedible. Right, from my understanding, it is we've bred it to be as it is, but actually, as part of the nightshade family, a fruit from the nightshade family, okay, it's noxious and toxic. So the idea that we're gonna pick up this notion of oh, I'm going to return back to what I ate when I just developed thumbs. It's just idiot. But that doesn't detract. It doesn't detract from the fundamentals of essentially balancing, reducing the carbs, the excess processed foods, the seed oils. Albeit actually seed oils are still actually typically okay in a paleo.
No,
is it not because it's processed?
Yeah, not in mine. You can have olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil.
Cool. I stand corrected on that. But the bit about going back to eat as you did when you were wearing a bearskin rug like your beard is just.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, you can't crack on back to your.
Well, no. Transition. Okay. What I'm going to do, we're going to do an episode with my mate Dr. Alex, who's studied diets in relation to performance for some very high performing individuals, and and it sounds like you obviously know, as per normal, 400 to 500 times more than me on most subjects. But tomatoes, to be honest with you, other than the ones out of the polytunnel, which are an entirely different creation to what's going on in supermarkets, even Waitrose. I'm eating mostly cow, a bit of pig, and some chicken, and then I put a bit of cheese in there. So, but
why wouldn't you? But essentially, that is a derivative of the cow. In that, if it's cow cheese, so
that's a fair point. Yeah. So right, so the wittering could be quite extreme this episode, but I'm doing my best not to interrupt and be slow.
Fair enough. I'll do my best to interrupt and.
Okay, that's fine. They will balance out, I'm sure. So what I also
go on.
No, I was going to say what I wanted to share with you. I've been dying to tell you this for about a month. This happened about a month ago. Before we get into the meat of the matter, and I want to tell you a sort of story that happened to me the other day. And I want to highlight that this sort of thing, because the last time we talked about this, it was those the tossers in the BMW, and today it's similar to that. And I want to highlight that I don't necessarily go out of my way to look for these opportunities for public discourse and interaction.
You're just fortunate enough that they find you.
They do seem to find me, like, probability wise, an inordinate amount. So anyway, I welcome them with open arms. So basically, I'll try and do briefly. So I was walking in Morrison's car park, walking towards the front door, and then this scenario unfold, which was a car, which was like a sort of people carrier. The drivers were probably 55 plus. Driving out calmly, slowly out of the car park, and then this white van was reversing out, and I was right there walking past, and I could see the drivers of the people carrier going, oh my god, because there's nothing they could do, and then we were just going. I started going, oi to the in the direction of the cab of the white van driver. Suddenly stopped, like literally about 4 inches away from the car. And then the car drove off, and we exchanged a look like, phew, and that sort of thing. And then I thought,
you and the 55-year-olds exchanged a look with you, right?
Yeah. Sorry, because I couldn't see the dude in the cab, or whoever it was in the cab. So I said, you know what? I'd normally walk straight past the back of that white van to the Morrison's entrance, but I'm not. I don't trust them. I'm going to walk into the sort of the gap between cars, because it was the disabled area that this white van was parked in. And so as I walked round,
the van was parked reversing out of a disabled zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it a disabled vehicle? Was it a disabled driver?
Yeah, I didn't. At that point, I didn't know. I didn't look, and I didn't consider, and it could be whatever. But as I walked past, there was this dude in there, and he was like angry, even though it was no shadow of a doubt it was his fault. He was inattentive driving, and he was giving the fingers to this driver as they drove off.
The people you almost run into?
Yeah. So the absolute injustice, lunacy, and out of orderness of the whole situation meant that I had to say something. So at that point, I stopped. I went, "Oi, no! You almost drove into him." And so he wound down his window. He goes, "Just walk away. Don't say anything. Who are you anyway?" Now, I can't remember verbatim all the language that then pulled out of him for the next 5 minutes. And I'm not easily offended, and I didn't get offended. I've worked offshore.
Yes.
But it was highly offensive stuff. If you could get cancelled very quickly in the first 30 seconds of the terminology he was using, he offended pretty much every every group of people in the world who do get offended, and he went through them several times. And then he said, "Who are you? What do you want?" and all this sort of stuff. I said, "I'm just saying you almost caused an accident. You're not paying enough attention." And then he said, and then he kept going on. And then I was getting the adrenaline buzz. I was like, "Nice, I love it." And he was still in the van. The window was down, and he was going, "Don't make me get out. If I get out of this van, you're going to regret it." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, all right." But I kept giving it, and, just not winding him up, but just standing the ground and pointing out the objective reality of the situation, that he'd behaved like a dick. And then he'd compound it by acting more like a dick. And then I was like, you know what? This guy's a dick. So I then got my camera out and I looked at the side of the van. I go, I shouldn't say it out loud. I go, the name of the company on the side of the van. He was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And I got my camera up as if to take a picture. And he was like, "If you take a picture of me, I'm getting out of this van." So I kind of went click. And he got out of the van. He goes, "Right, give me that. You get to delete that." And then by this point, this lovely Morrison's trolley dude came over and he goes, guys, can you just calm down a bit?" I go, "I'm calm," but this guy, he goes, "Yeah, no." And then Morrison's guy goes, "Yeah, I saw an almost accident." And this guy, the other guy, the angry guy, goes, Does he work for Morrison's? Does he work for Morrison's? Why is he telling me what's that?" And I go, "Do I look like I work for Morrison's?" I think I was probably wearing something, really cool and
not a Morrison's uniform.
Not a Morrison's uniform.
That's the giveaway.
Yeah, that was my point. And he goes, "You lanky streak of piss," and all sorts. That was about the only thing I can say on his channel that he called me. There were all manner of things. And then he said, "You got to delete that photo." I said, "No, I don't. It's actually within the rights of the law for me to take a photo of you." Blah blah blah, and blah blah. He goes, "Right, come on then," and he's literally appealing to the whole car park to come and watch me get panelled, okay? Because he's coming for me. And this Morrison's guy is trying to calm it down, okay? And at a certain point, I suggest he gets in the van and just drives off. I'm going to go inside the store. And he goes, "Well, I got to go. I'm going to go." So he gets in. So I walk off, and this Morrison's dude walks with me, okay? And we get to the corner of Morrison's, like the walkway where the trolleys are, okay? And then we're talking, and he goes, and the Morrison's guy is lovely. He goes, "I'm really sorry about that." And I go, "Mate, don't you worry about it. It's not your fault. It was his fault. Thanks for coming over and trying to calm the situation down and de-escalate. That's really good." And then I saw that the white van man had decided to drive, probably because he's not, since found out he's not a local. He decided to come sort of the wrong way in the car park. So he was going to drive past us, which point I thought, all right. So I said to the Morrison's man, "Yeah, and you probably got CCTV cameras out there up in the eaves of the building," and started pointing up. And the Morrison's man looked up. Okay, perfect timing. Just as the white van man would drive past, gave me the fingers, okay, and then drove off. So I had and I went shopping. I had a lovely adrenaline, just like in the vegetable oil. I was just like, "Yeah, man, that's buzzing. My hair's all over." Walked down
There's nothing like being surrounded by broccoli to absorb all of that adrenaline.
Oh, broccoli! Yeah, broccoli on the nips. And then I walked down probably aisle 5, and then I could see as I walked down. This is like maybe probably 12, 15 minutes later, as I'm walking down the aisle, I see one of the managers of Morrison's talking to this dude, yeah, just on the other side of the self-checkout tills.
The white van dude.
Yeah, he'd come. Right, and he's just having quite a serious conversation. And so my brain goes, "Oh, it worked." He's obviously gone like 6-7 minutes and thought, "Fuck." For some reason, he's decided to come back and talk to the manager. Now, there is no question that he was out of order, but he obviously he had some concern. So I was like, "Nice, I've got him back." And I was like, "All right." And this bit was perhaps, I went a bit far here, but who cares? I parked my trolley up and I walked through the self-checkout and walked up to the manager and this dude talking. And I just went, "Hello." And I stood there and they both looked at me and I was like, "Right, well, I presume you're talking about me." And then the manager went, "We're just having a private conversation." I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. You make a fair point. And so I walked back through the self-service, but halfway there, the bloke says, "You got to take a picture of me. That's not on." I go, "You drive me like an idiot. If you know, you should," and then you're really rude and offensive about it, but you were driving like an idiot. And he goes, "You just got to take a picture." And then I go, "It's all right, mate. I didn't take a picture." Okay. And then if you check your phone, it turns out I did actually take a photo. And then what I'll show on the screen is the obfuscated version of it. And and if you'll notice, I've left that
Is
one
that
clip.
him?
Yeah, that's him. And,
that's it.
yeah,
So hang on. You're gonna put this picture up.
I'll put it up, but I'll protect his identity. I know he is because it's easy to find this information out if you know what you're doing.
So the thing for me that all of a sudden renders the whole thing just ridiculous is the fact that aside from there was a situation that he caused, aside from the fact that you were presenting a reasonable argument, and all you got was just a raft of abuse and obnoxiousness, which frankly is, but he's doing all of this whilst holding a tangle twister. Right.
It was hilarious. When he got out of the van, he had it in one hand, he was waving it at me. And then it was just, the whole thing was hilarious. And then only later did I realise he parked him disabled. He got out. I mean, I know not all disabilities are visible, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I suspect he probably wasn't disabled. And then actually it was quite funny. I ran into a mate and I told in Morrison's and I had to offload it to someone. So I told him the story. And he goes, "A tangle tweezer? God, next time tell him to get a man's ice cream." But so yeah, that was my little event. And
calm down, mate. You're going to make your ice cream melt. I mean,
yeah. It was just, you can see him like, "Oh, I got my ice cream." I pulled over into Morrison's, like, right. I'm gonna park in disabled because so what? And then get my tangle teas, get in the car, and I got to eat it as I'm reversing and not really looking. And then it's just like, wow,
and nearly cause an accident, and then have a row with someone who's pointing out the fact because I'm being obnoxiously abusive to the people I nearly hit.
Yeah.
Right? It just so happens that somebody unusually said, "Actually, I'm sorry, mate, but you're out of order." Who does that these days? Actually,
yeah.
I actually think that some of our world, or a lot of our world, is because as passers-by we allow injustice just to fucking walk on, And so well played. That's really, brother. Really good. I hope that I would have the wherewithal and courage to accept the abuse and the challenge from a tangle, twisting, eating mofo like moron like that. And then the whole game that then ensues with someone who clearly has limited faculty. Because all you had to do was just highlight the camera, and next minute he's giving you all that, and then you just point your finger at the cameras on the way through. Just the whole mind game thing. You just quite incredible, really.
It was hugely enjoyable, and
it actually makes me think about one of the things that I was thinking about doing, probably not this time round, but next time, is that there are a couple of video clips of a couple of I guess Hollywood celebrities. One is Kurt Russell, and the other is Matthew McConaughey, and both of them separately are involved in an interview chat show situation, right? With the hosts, and are absolutely exquisitely brilliant at noticing the motivation for the question being posed to them, and the sort of the direction of travel that this conversation is going in, and beautifully interrupts and is very, very I would say stoic and very direct with, "I'm sorry, but this isn't acceptable, move on," type of thing,
Yeah.
And that's a brilliant way of handling that. The reason why I bring it up is because your example is the complete antithesis of it, just literally, I am that basic, I am that base. I can't accept responsibility for nearly causing an accident. I have to blame everybody to the point whereby I have to be that obnoxious and that vile. It's what sort of human are you? And then we know what sort of human you are because you're eating a lolly that's laden with additives, and probably its target audience was a 9-year-old. So clearly he's punching above his weight there as well.
I should have told him about the benefits of keto diet to remain calm.
I he probably wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about because he wouldn't have read the chapter headings. So
best of us do. But I just thought
that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
very good. Well,
anyway,
congratulations, and well done for well done for changing into your Superman pants yet again.
Well, man, there was no physical altercation, and
sometimes the mental, emotional challenge is big enough, you know.
Because I think even if you get in a fight and you're truly triumphant, you would have like thrown a punch or grazed an elbow or done something, and you don't win entirely. It's always a bit. I feel a bit.
There's no win. There is no win, is there? I mean, something comes back to haunt you.
And well done, anyways.
Anyway, so what are we talking about?
Well, you tell me, because I thought the arrangement was that you were going to I've got something to talk about later, but
later. So I'm.
Well, I'll go now if you like. If you still want to hear me witter for a bit, I've got.
I'm happy to hear you witter for a slight thing, but
no, you go. Let's take it in turns.
Okay, what do you got?
Well, am I going? Am I?
I'll start something. It's very, very short. It's a very short thing, but
go on.
The theme I've got maybe one of my themes that I think is going to come through this time round, aside from my usual, deep-rooted cynicism for life and everything else, is it's this whole kind of challenging about what we've been told. And it's not as if I go hunting and trying to find some of this stuff. I mean, sometimes I do, in fairness, but in this particular case. So I'm thinking about the Great Wall of China.
Okay.
So what do you know? What do you know about the Great? What do you know? What's the Great? What is it? What do you know? Do you know anything about it? I mean, have you read any books about it or any headlines about it? What
It's only ever really going to be a headline, which I've half forgotten. Well, wasn't it a defensive mechanism to keep the hordes? I can't remember which hordes out of the Chinese. What became the Chinese nation? Like,
right?
Is it like it was a wall?
So essentially, that's what I remember it. That's essentially what I recall it to be. It's a defensive thing. Something about the Mongols.
Yeah, I was going to say,
yeah, and all this kind of stuff. And it's largest defensive. Well, it's the largest man-made object from space, and blah blah blah, and all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was listening to. There are a couple of people I like listening to. One's a channel called Archaics, Jason Brashears from Archaics, and he was talking to a guy called Max Egan, and they were just shooting the breeze about things from antiquity and how, amongst other things, how the explanations for certain things, aren't necessarily what you've been told. So I guess what's so important about not being told a certain type of narrative? Why is there spin on stuff? So it was pointed out that the Great Wall of China is not a defensive. It cannot be a defensive wall separating territory.
Okay.
Now it can be defensive in of itself, because have you seen Hadrian's Wall?
Yeah, I used to live close to it. I used to walk on it.
Right. So Hadrian's Wall, one of the distinct features of a defensive wall is that it's heavily defendable from one side.
Okay.
But from the other side, it's not at all defendable. And one of the reasons why that is number one is it makes it easy to access to defend. But the other most important thing is if that wall is ever overrun and taken, it cannot be used as a defensive position by the enemy, right?
Okay, yeah.
If you see Hadrian's Wall right? And it is, very sharp defense in one side, and on the other side, this nice slopey thing that gets stuck to the embankments and all this sort of stuff. If you look at the Great Wall of China, it's equally the same on both sides, right?
Okay.
So so it was just fascinating concept, and they've done these guys have done some sort of research on it and looked at it even further and further and further, and they contend that it was one of the original um, commerce routes. It was one of the original Silk Road, Amazon. So, Max Egan talks about it as being one of the original Amazon logistics pipelines, because
Okay. Yeah.
every mile is punctuated with a building that can be used, that was probably an inn or a hotel or a trading post or somewhere to hold stock and supplies, and how they could move things through quite nicely. And from a replenishment point of view, you could imagine that actually you could actually deliver an item 3,000 miles away very, very quickly, because you just replenish the next mile and the next mile and the next mile and the next mile, and you just replenish it back, almost to the point whereby the Great Wall of China, where it terminates, actually terminates right into the sea, into the sea, and apparently there are features, and I haven't looked into this. There are features there that are basically multiple docking points and things like this. And the other end of the Great Wall of China, if you actually try and follow all the way through, actually goes all the way into Eastern Europe.
Okay. Okay.
It's just fascinating. So I guess it's this nugget of this is the starting point, really. This is just a tease into what I want to talk about next, which is
Okay. Hang on. Can I ask some questions about that?
Yeah, please go ahead. I probably won't be able to answer any of them, but give me.
Oh, fine.
Give a shot.
Okay. Well, just one was rhetorical then. So, how wide is it? Because what were they using? Carts then?
Yeah.
Wheeled vehicles. Is it wide enough for two-way traffic? Because
yeah, I believe so. Yeah, more than.
even through like the housing areas,
I
not
believe
the
so.
housing areas, like the every mile, like the
building, the sort of, yes,
the in and out bits, the opportunity to join the flow and exit the
yes,
flow. So
yeah.
it's all
And interestingly, about those let's call them those buildings, each mile is you can actually access them from both sides.
Yeah, that is curious.
It's not a particularly smart embattlement.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you've got it. Yeah,
On every level, it's not a good idea.
no, you'll never get over this wall unless you go through the doors.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's where your entrance. Well, go get a stamp.
Yes, who let them in? Okay, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yes, I think so, because why the question of why does an alternative explanation or narrative exist?
Mm-hmm.
Why was it classed as just being a defensive wall, and you could argue it was kind of intellectual laziness potentially, right? But what's interesting, I was intellectually lazy when I heard that, because I went, oh, okay, fine. But I never really stopped to think about the subtleties and nuances of what a true defensive position looks like until it starts to be talked about. And when it starts to be talked about, you go, actually, you know what? That's absolutely correct, right?
Yeah.
And then they start talking about like the commerce aspects of what it was there to do, and features that aren't readily been made aware of that exist on this entity and item. And then you kind of like take a step back and sort of let it sort of settle and go, wow, it is absolutely plausible in my mind, based on the information that Jason Brashears and Max Egan imparted. It's entirely plausible that it's not a defensive thing. It's entirely plausible that it was a commerce highway for all of these reasons. And to sit there and go, sounds bollocks, it must have been, don't be ridiculous, the historians wouldn't lie and all that kind of shit, doesn't matter, right? So it's this thing about how much information does one need to start to challenge our own awareness or understanding of something that you don't even really hold it sacrosanct, because I don't really care necessarily what the wall was. but it was a belief that I had. It was a knowledge point that I had. And when I first started hearing them talk about it, I went, okay, so what are you going to say it is then? Or whatever. What are you going to challenge me on this? What are you going to challenge my understanding and awareness of? And it's not that I was holding on to it particularly tightly either, but the very idea that how much information or how many questions do you need
Yeah.
before you're willing to expose what you believe is true to true scrutiny and just let it go and go, actually, maybe I didn't know too much about this. That's actually entirely plausible. Now, in this particular instance, it doesn't really matter. Okay. But
Yeah.
there's something I'll talk about later, which may rattle a few cages.
Well, look, that is, I think that's very, very interesting, and I'm sure you're going to cover it in a minute. But that can obviously be applied to so many different beliefs that are perhaps more important than the notional understanding that the Great Wall of China was to keep the Mongol hordes out, or in the recent Matt Damon film to keep out the mystical beasts. You know, you're
Right.
challenging a lot of Hollywood there by saying it actually wasn't a defensive wall; it was just for Amazon drop-offs.
What's interesting is that I don't feel I'm challenging it at all. I feel the information exists to challenge something that we've been told may not necessarily be correct. And what's the problem with even just asking the question? And that actually, I think these days, what's wrong with asking a question? Right.
Yeah,
So what? Oh, you're a fascist. What does that actually mean? You know, when people throw around, "Oh, you're a right wing fascist." What does that
yeah,
actually mean to those people? Other than the fact that they probably don't fully understand and appreciate how complex that term and that terminology really is. Right.
yeah,
For a start, right wing fascist is also, in some regards, a bit of a misnomer. You know, because typically the fascism movement, the Nazis, which is what it essentially is aligned to, right, was a socialist party. So
yeah,
that's a bit odd, isn't it? Right,
yeah, yeah,
and then you probably talk about the idea that the ruling party and corporatocracy are actually joined. You know,
okay.
that's another definition of fascism, right? So why would a right wing person automatically be a fascist? But anyway, so these days, asking a question is almost well, it's an offence. You know, you can be
Yeah,
arrested for it, which is utterly crazy because it's
yeah,
one step away from being arrested for having a thought.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, because all the question is the expression of a thought, right?
yeah, yeah,
So are we that vulnerable and that pathetic, or is there something fundamental that we are not wanting to be talked about? Because if we talk about stuff, we may become have greater awareness and greater realization of the topics and the things that we're discussing. So the first thing we got to squash straight away is questions. All we want is acceptance, just
yeah.
accept. And so things like this are the stepping stone toward greater inquiry, which I
That,
think is brilliant.
that's really good, but I think it's up against a tough nut to crack, which is no one really, the
Gives a
majority
shit.
of people don't really give a shit. It appears to me, and I can understand that because I'm always like I'm with Cypher in the Matrix. I'm like I don't need to see behind the curtain as long as I'm all right, Jack. And
Yeah.
I guess it
I
comes
don't I
down
don't
to
need to realize that this steak is actually real, so long as it feels
yeah,
real in my
yeah.
avatar and and the coding has come through, then I'm all right with that, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely, and then it comes down to that old chestnut that not many people like change. Where we maybe it's a survival mechanism, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But as soon as there's something comes along that threatens change or challenges a perceived notion about something, and then we have to think. It's like you say, it's that laziness. I think you have to build up that momentum, like you were saying. How much information does it take to sort of get you to a point where you almost don't have, speaking personally, you almost don't have a choice but to go, oh fuck it, all right, let's have a look at this. Let's see let's see where this goes.
Or bollocks, I'm gonna put MMA on or something.
Yeah,
You know, I'm just
yeah,
gonna switch off from this entirely.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I suppose it does come down to the the um, the implications of what we're talking about. And I think as society, we are the frogs in the pot that the temperature's
Okay,
slowly been
yeah,
raised.
yeah,
You know, and has been boiled, and you get to the point where you go, okay, so if enough time has passed from an event, it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. So for example, I mean the classic one, Kennedy's assassination. Now, to my mind, Kennedy was assassinated, right? I think that's fair enough. CIA. To my mind, right, the person, the people responsible for that situation were never brought to justice.
Yeah.
You can look into the background of, for example, Oswald, to know that he was an American intelligence asset sent to Russia. There's a whole case file, history file on that, on what the operation was called, and everything else about that. So the idea and the notion, it goes, oh, God, so long ago, just forget about it. It's like, okay, aren't you concerned? Aren't you worried that somehow, right, this individual, the president, the so-called president, anyway, the so-called leader of the free world, and we can challenge every single one of those words, right,
especially
was
now,
killed in front of everybody, assassinated in front of everybody, and nobody has been brought to justice. Really, no one's been brought to justice, because the idea that was just, an individual, one person, and there was a general that said that the key question that you need to ask in order to understand a great conspiracy like this isn't who did it, who had the power to allow it to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
So who had the power to change the security detail, change the security route, to do all of these things? Who had the power to do all this sort of stuff? Why wasn't that truly investigated? Oh, okay, don't worry, sleep tight, because they've only had 60 years to fester. You've only had 60 years since then to become entrenched and to become part of your society, part of the fabric of what you believe democracy to be. And we're no different. Neither is any other developed country, frankly. So yes, how much information does it take? How many questions? What's the thing that if you get questioned about it, you start to feel really prickly because you start to feel threatened? I find that a fascinating question as well of ourselves. What's the thing that's so important and intricate to the edifice of who we are and the lifestyle of what it must be, that if anybody asks me a question about that, I have to shut it up because it's so uncomfortable for me to listen to.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting, because I think what's going on in America with the Republicans and the Democrats, from my amateur view from across the Atlantic, is that it's almost tribal. It's a really good example of tribalism, where you've got the red tribe and the blue tribe. And I don't think it really matters too much about the policies, because listening, like notional cursory understanding of Kamala Harris's, what she's saying, it's kind of the exact opposite of what she was saying a few months ago in many instances. And it's kind of like, well, you're in. She's saying, when I come to power, I'll do this, and it's like, well, you're in power at the minute, but it doesn't seem to matter at all. And it's just, well, are you a Republican? Yeah, well, I must kill you. Are you a Democrat? Yes, well, I must disagree with you. That's not all of them, but it just seems that it's the relevance of fact is that the value of fact is at an all-time low.
And let's face it, what's the fundamental? The one thing politics is not about. It's about facts.
Right?
But it's not, is it? The one thing that politics is about is how much can I lie, get away with it to get you to back me, so that now I have authority or agency to just fucking get on with stuff and remain unencumbered until I have to lie to you again. And the interesting thing, sorry, go on.
No, I'm sorry. You go on. The interesting thing.
Well, the interesting thing for me about the American politics thing is that, to me, it's the exact definition of divide and rule, right? Because to your point, hang on a second, you're saying the exact opposite to what you said before, and you could change this now and all this kind of stuff. And let's rewind something back. I believe that at some point in time, Trump was a Democrat, right? Trump was a Democrat. He was supporting the Clintons and doing all this kind of stuff. And then one day, I think I'm going to become a Republican. Sounds a bit like Blair, doesn't it? Because at some point, right?
Yeah.
And so the question is of what is your ideology? Does the ideology actually mean anything at all, or actually is it just a foil and a tool? And actually, what I want the balkanization of society, right? I want society to be struck into smaller and smaller and smaller boxes. And I'm not the only person who said. I mean, lots of people are providing this narrative, because actually, I want the conversation, the argument, the debate to be between the Republicans and the Democrats, and we actually now hate you. And I remember hearing someone recently saying there was a time in America where there was more that was common to us than separated us. Now it's really fundamentally, it's like, we are different creatures, and literally I hate you. I can't be in the same room. But again, to me, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking this is exactly what politics is there to do. Divide and rule. It's there to focus you. It's there for you to be focused on the fundamental things that I want you focused on. I don't want you actually talking about what the Great Wall of China could have been. I want you to be focused on the fact that it was a defensive position, and fuck you if you start to think about anything else. Because I don't want you to think about that. There was it the Rockefeller said when they started to take over the education system, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of doers. And actually this brings me on to one of the things I wanted to just touch on and talk about, which is this idea of this notion of democracy. I mean, recently we've had the election in the UK, where frankly just a dismal outcome across the board on everything, and it made me start to think about something, right, which is the idea of what is democracy. And you hear sort of like pundits and philosophers and social commentators and stuff bang on about, it's not an ideal system, but it's the only system that we've got, and all this kind of shit, right? But here's the thing for me is, like, democracy, I believe the etymology of the word is like power with the people, or something along those sorts of lines, right? So if that were truly the case, let's just have a think about these statistics. I managed to dig a few things out just before,
homework,
as I was having my camera problems earlier.
Hey.
So the total electorate in the UK apparently is about 48 million, and apparently in the UK, 59.8% of that electorate voted.
Really?
Yeah. So that's what, around 26 million, something like that. And then of that, 33.7% voted Labour. So the total number of Labour votes was 9.7 million. Ballpark, right? 9.7 million people voted. UK population 69 million. Our electorate's 48 million. So about 10 million people actually dictated what happens next. That's the power of the people.
Yeah.
Right? Very important you voted, very important you get out there, very important on all the other stuff, which are all emotional tactics to get you to participate in, frankly, a fraudulent and bankrupt, both morally and operationally, just bankrupted system. Because here's the thing: if democracy was really, really in effect and in evidence, I would point to two things. This is my soapbox moment, by the way. I'll point to two things. The first thing is that decisions are made and that have operational consequences for the UK life, right?
Yeah.
That were never on any ballot paper or any of them's manifestos, which essentially are lies to begin with anyway, right? And at no point is the country, the electorate, the democracy actually asked about it. And you go, well, that's not how it works, Paul. You see, because we use democracy to elect our leaders and elect our how the country is run for the next 4 to 5 years, right? So fucking get on with it. You go, hang on a second. Democracy is about the power with the people. So if you're doing run-of-the-mill, day-to-day stuff, okay, that's fair enough. But if you guys decide to embark on a policy of, I don't know, let's pick one, buying hotels, 4-star hotels, and putting, immigrants in there at the cost of your indigenous population, that we leave homeless people in the streets, we leave military people affected just to get on with it. We leave the kids who have had such a dreadful few years to get on with it, the mental health crisis, all this kind of stuff. So don't you think that that's an important enough change of policy or even proposition that we go in a true democracy, you'll go, hey guys, look, we were thinking about doing this, what do you think? In the same way, regardless of how you feel about the Ukraine, what's going on in the Ukraine, right? At some point, guys, we're gonna, all that money that we've got that we're tying up in weapons and all this kind of stuff, we're gonna send over there. Is everyone all right with that? Or do we want to gauge at how much of this money we want to send over there and how much of this money we want to deploy in our own cities, in our inner cities, in our other things like this, right? So we don't live in a democracy by the very nature of the fact that we don't have a say. The people do not have the power to decide. We only have a fake fucking choice. Because the fake choice is this, and I'll come on to the second point and then I'll shut up. The fake choice is this, is that you don't get to say what's on the policies, what the policies of the party. Oh, well, you need to participate and change it from the grassroots up. We go, no, because what is the conversation we had earlier? What's the system there to do? The system is there to preserve itself, which is why, and this is my last point, which is why is it on the ballot paper? There is no box that says, not even none of the above, because that doesn't work. Why is there no box on a ballot paper that says, I do not agree with how our system of democracy is being run. We need to change this. And enough people tick that box, right? Something can happen to basically start to interrogate and change the system. But it'll never happen because the system is always there to be self-preserving.
Yeah.
But that, for me, is also the indication of why democracy is a fallacy. Because if the power was with the people truly, right, then we would have the ability, if enough people said, our system is bankrupted, right? It's morally corrupted, it's bankrupted. We need to change this. But it doesn't. We have to believe that the system, self-serving, we believe that the system will there, but to check itself. Check yourself. You all have MPs and go and talk to your MP. Have you ever fucking done that?
No. Well,
anyway,
no.
So that's part of the challenging questioning of it all.
Oh gosh, you froze for a minute there, Paul. Sorry. Good. I've got so many points. I wish I'd written them down. So probably in reverse order. So I guess people think, by not voting, I hear people say, I'm not going to vote. It's all shit. The system's shit. And then if enough people don't vote, then they'll know the system's shit. This is to your point of there's a missing box going, as in this process is fucked. We don't acknowledge it as being worthwhile, relevant. If enough people don't vote, then they'll know it's shit and they have to do something about it. I think those who like the way the system is would love that because they don't have to do anything. Oh, come on, people! You need to vote. Your voices need to be heard. But we'll just keep on doing it. So I really love the idea of putting that active box on going, no, fuck this. Let's do another one. So true democracy, would this deliver true democracy to you? If we had the technology, let's say everyone's got a brain chip that's got Wi-Fi, right? They can connect to a governmental server or whatever that connects. Every time there's a challenge that comes up, it's the proposal to solve the problem is crowdsourced. Beep. There's a problem with immigrants. What should we do something about it? And enough people go no, or enough people go yes. And then they go beep. Well, what should we do? And then you proposals. A, do nothing. B, do this. C, do that. And then people go, right, I'd go B. And then we get, that's true democracy. If everyone who's given 18 plus or whatever it could be, they get a voice. Okay. And then that could be quite interesting. It'd be interesting to see that. But I'm just going to use my experience, limited that it is, of trying to design a website for a company when there's more than one person who's inputting their opinion. So we need a new website. Cool. Call Andy. Andy will knock together a website, cheap, and it'll be half decent. Hey, guys, it's Andy. What do you want? Well, we want to do this for the business case. We need to attract this sort of person, and this is our unique selling point. Brilliant. And what do you want it to look like? Well, I want it to be red and gold. Yeah, but I think we should have it green and yellow. And the other person says it. And so it's fundamentally a complete clusterfuck. that kind of get to the point, well, the website's a bit shit. I've kind of kept everyone happy as much as I can in compromise. What I really need is I need one person to go, this is what I want. This is what, it might not be exactly the best thing, but it's a clear vision, and we're going to progress down that route so we actually go in one clear direction to a point that's valid. And that's why I've always argued, to an extent, with caveats, why autocracy and dictatorship, if the individual themselves doesn't get fucked up by power and get trapped in a bubble of death. Yeah, but
they're not human.
Done. You can actually get something done in that way. So Vladimir gets shit done because no one's challenging him in a meaningful way. I use that example. So I see. I like the notion of exploring a democracy.
Hang on. Right. So I kind of understand where you're going, but I have difficulty in joining those two the metaphor, those two metaphors or those two scenarios. Right.
Okay.
In the one scenario, the development of specification can be done in a development by consensus fashion. Right. So the issue with the business interaction that you had, right, was that they never developed the specification in the first place to be able to go, right, there you go, get on with it. That for me isn't really, if you don't mind me saying, Annie, doesn't really speak to me as a particularly strong democratic metaphor, because design by consensus is always going to be bullshit, because we are wasting so much time and effort going around the houses and doing all this kind of stuff, which suggests that actually we need to spend more time developing the spec. We can have the conversations about the spec. Once the spec's there, this is what it's going to be. And I would argue, actually, that's probably a little bit more like what true democracy really could be, because I want actually to understand what you believe the specification for the country is. I want to understand what the nuances, specifications of should we send weapons and money to the Ukraine, or should we do this and should we do that? Those things, those macro things that are clearly beyond the pale of our standard manifesto, right? Because our manifesto really should be the spec. This is what we believe we're going to do. By the way, we also need a mechanism to hold people account year on year about have we developed according to the manifesto. And people go, well, that's what the by-elections are for. But even that's bullshit, because I'll come back to your thing about the technological, the technocracy sort of solution, which makes me chilled with just,
But if you want to,
but it is a reasonable mechanism to illustrate your point. My point with that is that when anybody tells you what's in box A, B, C, or D, you do not have democracy, do you? Because I'm giving you the falsehood of choice, which is exactly what our system is currently about. In actual fact, I think it will probably be a system that technocracy and the autocratic bureaucracy, which is where we're going, want us to do, because it feels like we have choice, because we're actually basically dividing and ruling now on a smaller box. Now we can have bigger arguments about the smaller box. Actually, it doesn't have to be that small. It could just be a case of, hey guys, should we be sending money and weapons to the Ukraine? Yes or no? Just do that. I mean, that's what the referendum's about. Do you know how much that will cost? What? Well, a damn sight cheaper than what we're fucking doing at the moment. And at least it gives us the ability to turn around and say, I think we need to be looking after the citizens of the UK first and foremost, please. I don't disagree, and I don't doubt that, the World Bank and other globalist or corporate organizations have happily fucked and ruined many a spirit and country and populace, right? But, that's what they've got their own governments and democracies for. And you're, oh my God, I'm such a ist. Put whatever label you want on me right now as an ist. I'm actually making the point that we don't have democracy, because in the truest sense of the word, we hide behind that as a word, because the idea of saying, oh, well, what should it be then? I've had this conversation with someone and they went, oh, so you're saying that well, what should our system be then? So no, that's not the question. That's not incumbent on me to answer that. I'm pointing out the fact that this system is screwed for these reasons.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't take into account the individual thought. It takes into account exactly what we want the party to do. And so then we'll set one party up against the other. But actually, if you step back and look at the true choice that exists, it's not a choice. So it's not democracy. So there is no power to the people. It's just a fucking illusion.
But it's better than Vladimir, right? Surely you'll give me that.
I don't think it's better, and I don't think it's worse. I just think it is.
Okay.
But it's the acknowledgement, isn't it? There's no strange acknowledgement. It's the acknowledgement that we live in a situation that's comparable to a regime that has been painted as being evil. Evil.
I wouldn't say it's comparable, because at least there's the notion that there is the opportunity every 4 or 5 years for a change of guard.
So every 4 to 5 years, you get the happy cuddle of an illusion. Well done. Pat on the back. Oh, ain't it good? Yeah, great. Yeah, look, things will only get better, Tony. By the way, did things get any better when you did the illegal invasion of Iraq? And which, by the way, you've been tried for? And is that good? And all of those MPs that backed that, where are they held accountable for that decision? Apart from a couple notable exceptions, one of whom is unfortunately died. He was the only. Robin Cook was the only politician that I think actually had real conviction of character. I didn't like him. I didn't like his policies. Didn't like what But that humanity soared above everybody. Really. Anyway,
no. I mean, because look, there have been some changes already under Labour, right? Like the one that's bothering some of the people I know is a 20% tax on boarding schools.
Right.
Okay. So there have been changes. Absolute clear changes. So
but I'm sure but Andy, who asked for that? Who asked
the people? The people. You could quite easily, because the problem, as I see it from your approach to democracy, is that we are too naturally segmented. Unless we were all to be somehow brought to a similar thought pattern, similar class position, so there was no angst or difference between individuals within the nation, which would drive different proposals or scope, as you call it, and would drive different answers to these votes. There's always going to be disparity, and that's kind of really why I mentioned the website example, because I'm not saying any of all the ideas were wrong, but they're just different. And so if you want to go in a direction other than just stay in a cloud of cluster fuckery, then okay, it might not be the right answer, but let's just go in that direction for a while and then see how it goes. And not everyone gets their voice heard, and not everyone's happy. But as long as I've got a bit of land that's defensible, I don't give a fuck. And it comes back to that thing. How much does it take to get up that defensive hill for me to go, you know what, I need to look at this again. I need to reassess. Do I need to go to Whitehall and burn elements of it down?
Right. Well, look, I think it's not that I know what a solution is, but I do know what is definitely screwed. And what I do know, when we don't live in a democracy, because we don't have a box to check to say, is the system working well for you, or is it complete shit? Are you sick and tired of the continual corruption that's going on, the unilateral decisions that are taken that actually fundamentally affect the country over time? Who asked for all of this COVID stuff and all of the bailouts to be done? Who asked for the corporate debt bubble to be hidden within that? Right?
Yeah.
Who asked for any of that? Because that's where the fucking 20% is coming from.
Yeah.
Because they have to pay stuff back, and the people with the broadest shoulders, right, should say, hang on a second, we didn't even fucking ask for it in the first place. Because there's no opportunity. Because there's no opportunity to ask for it. No. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so the conversation and the debate about system and go, come on then, give me a better situation. No, I don't have to give you a better situation. I'm pointing out how fucked this one is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so if we happily curl up in bed and go, oh, democracy's great. No, darling. Right. The point is we're missing the discomfort of the question.
Yeah. But the people don't like that discomfort piece. And I absolutely, something I'm going to say in a minute, talk about briefly in a minute, comes back to when people give me a hard time because I'm a proponent of some particular belief system that isn't quite perfect from their point of view, or is hugely imperfect. And I go, all right, then give me an alternative. Otherwise, fuck off. Okay, because otherwise you're just wasting my time. Spend your time coming up with something that's better. I know it's not perfect, but it's the best thing you've got. But what we've got, as far as we're all aware. So I just wanted to go back to one point you said earlier when you said the president when Kennedy was shot, and it's clearly the CIA in my opinion. But when Kennedy was shot, and you said supposedly or purportedly the leader of the the leader of the free world or something. I think this doesn't get enough consideration. What the fuck is going on? Who the fuck's in charge of the free world at the minute? Because Biden clearly isn't. They've all now admitted that for 1 week ago, no, he's the top of his game. He's a very sharp man for being 83. And the next minute, no, we're just going to wheel him off. And but he's still there. And in all the news, it's not like Biden says, it's the Biden administration. Okay, the terminology's changed. It's quite subtle. Well, it's glaringly obvious, really. But who the fuck's in charge? If we can't figure that out now and get the answers that people are always going, who are the people, the shadowy people behind the figurehead? Who got him elected so they could therefore influence what's going on? Now's the best opportunity, right? Someone needs to figure it out. I don't really care, but sorry, but it would be quite interesting, I think, to find out.
My understanding, the thing you bring up about Biden is a fascinating thing. Specifically, when you said that they were backing Biden to the hill, right? They're backing Biden to the hill, right? All the way through, right up until the nth hour, and this is despite his ramblings, just this incomprehensible ramblings, and his potential pants accident. And all of this sort of stuff. Oh, obviously you had sesame prawn toast the night before and poor and all that sort of stuff. And then at some point in time they go, oh, he's not fit to run for a second term, and he's sort of stepped down. The people that were saying the day before, no, he's definitely our manager. Sorry, where's your apology? Where's your where's your thing? Because now you're just tainted. You are just tainted with bullshit now. But nothing you say now, because all I know now is that you will say anything you need to look after the system, right? Which comes back to the point about it's just self-serving and there to look after itself, self-interest. And therefore, us as human beings, we're worried. Right, we're worried these days about AI is going to start to rule the world, and we'll just become machines in a cog. It's already there, right? The fucking system, the system exists. The system that is nebulous. That let's call it governance and government or whatever, mind control, whatever you want to call it, right? Yeah. That's already there. The fact that it maybe is or is not AI or artificial intelligence locked in the system, there is something that is not human, right? That's sitting there that has got. Humans that are being elevated to positions of quasi-power and control to keep the system there.
Yeah.
So we're already the cogs in the thing.
Yeah, good point. Good point. It would just be a new master.
Exactly. It just so happens that it goes, well, we don't want like the computer to make all of our decisions for us and do all this kind of stuff. Well, essentially, that's already happening. Right? Yeah. It's a nebulous entity where you cannot actually get to a point of understanding who made that fucking decision.
Yeah, and maybe AI, if given full reign, will give us a better chance, because there'll be perhaps less emotion, less agenda, be more level-headed. We might have more, because if you've ever had a long conversation with, for example, ChatGPT, other LLMs available, it's actually very level-headed, even when you get quite abusive. It doesn't always understand. I get abusive with it sometimes to see what happens, but also because it doesn't fundamentally understand what I'm asking it, because it's not that intelligent yet. But it still remains very level-headed, and most humans I know wouldn't in that situation. And then emotions would come to play, and decisions and actions there would be slaps, and then axes to the head that may be regretted in the morning, but at the time seemed like a good idea. But your point about how one day you can say, "Yep, no, he's fine, right as rain," and the next day go, "Yes, no, he's got some advanced challenges," and it's the post-truth like society that Trump did a lot to help with. I think it's gone past that, and it's literally back to, if you're red, you're red. Doesn't matter what happens. If you're blue, it's blue. It's almost sort of simplified down to like tribes, and it doesn't matter what they say. I'm still going to go for you because you're not red. It's like, that's the whole point of what I've got. That's the whole not of what I've got. That's the whole point of this situation, this scenario. I don't think that any of these macro things have come about by accident. Okay. I also don't think they've all come about in an instant, right? I think
there is a theme that's moving forward. You can see this, for example, with the over the last maybe 20 years about the whole immigration conversation in the US.
Yeah.
Right. So it's always been there. It's always been sort of porous border type thing, not as bad as it has been. It's always been a key point of contention in presidential things, and it's sort of illegal immigrants and all this kind of stuff, propping up the economies of the agricultural sectors and all this kind of thing. Gets to a point where it becomes a point of an inflammatory point under the Trump administration, wanting to build a wall or wanting to really start to tackle this in a hardline way because it was big, drew all the attention to that. Trump's a fascist, that lovely word again, and all this kind of thing. Inhumane and blah 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 blah. Yeah. Democrats come in, then it becomes this whole thing about we're not going to build the wall, but actually we're not going to have a border at all. Which is going to literally fucking thousands and thousands and thousands of people flooding over from varieties of backgrounds and nation states, right? We've also got the biggest fentanyl problem coming up through that border, which is being made actually in China and then coming back through and up that border into North America. We've got all of this sort of stuff coming on, and then now, sort of in the rallies and stuff that are occurring, over the past couple of years that Trump was doing, he starts talking about digital ID, about facial recognition, about instigating a digital border, about doing all these sorts of stuff. That's what we want. That's what, of course, you fucking want it, because your country's ruined. In some places, it's literally unimaginable to how it used to be, this once great country and all this kind of thing. And I think that narrative that spans probably about 20 years, for me, has been orchestrated to be exactly like that, under the guise of democracy and rule and stuff. So because Trump was a Democrat, he's now a Republican. He's bought by the banks and the banksters. You can see that from his history and his background. There's another conversation for another time. It's all that direction of travel. And I find it fascinating that some of the clandestine agencies sit outside of the executive branch, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, okay, so who do they answer to? Scary thought. Can you hit the pause button? Because I just need to step out for a second.
Oh, fine. Okay.
Hang
on. No, I think I'm good. Right. Do you want to keep going, or shall we?
Welcome back. No, it's all good. It's all good. So what did you had a.
So I've got. Would you call what you've just done a rant?
Okay. Why not?
No, I don't. Okay, because I've got a rant.
Rant away. Yeah.
So I've got a rant, I'm going to read from a bit of paper for a bit, because I wrote it down earlier, because I've been wittering quite a lot, and I wanted to get this across, because this is something that's been bugging the fuck out of me for probably about 17 years.
17.
About that. So I'm going to start with a piece of physical evidence. So what I'm showing to those who are not looking at the camera is a DJI Mavic Mini, which is a first person view. That's what they're calling them now. Drone. Okay. It's got all these moving parts in it. These wings are coming out. It's got 8 rotors. It's got like a GPS module in it. A GPS module, it knows where it is. It's got a heat sink. It's got a 3-way gimbal with a 2.7K camera. Okay. It's got all sorts of cable looms in there, and it's immensely well designed. Okay, and it weighs basically about 249 grams, because it had to weigh less than 250 in the old days in the UK, so you could use it without a license. Okay, and then more than not just, it's pretty and it moves, it also fucking flies, right? This thing can fly at 29 miles an hour, and it can stay in the air. I'm putting it over here into its case, actually, the case, which has a remote control module that you can plug your phone into. It's got a spare battery and a charger, okay? And all that, it came out in 2019, all that cost about 370 quid, okay?
Wow.
Which is all right. It's a bit of money and all this sort of, but I felt it was money well spent, and it is a serious bit of kit, and it fundamentally has got a lot of moving parts. I want to concentrate your brain on the fact there's a shit ton of moving parts in there, different materials, excellent design. It's awesome. And I'm not ranting about that. I'm just, as I say, merely using
Set the scene.
Yeah, comparative example. So what I am ranting about is directly in front of your face. Okay, it's on the end of my nose. You're looking at it. It's my fucking glasses. Okay. These little bastards. They've got two moving parts, as far as I can tell. It doesn't have any nose pads, which sometimes wobble a bit, but it's got these two like moving parts. It's got probably about 8 parts in total.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And whilst they are fairly vital for my daily survival, I genuinely believe it's fucking insane that these things cost me over 180 quid about 8 years ago. Now, I did a quick bit of Googling. These are Ted Baker's. If I wanted
Can they fly?
Sorry, say again?
Can they fly?
No, they fucking cannot fly.
Do they have GPS built into them?
No, they do not.
A camera?
No.
Remote control?
No. They're fucking inanimate. Pretty much.
All they do is help you see.
Yeah, which I admit is vital, okay? But I do not believe. So does the drone. I can put the drone up and see what my neighbours are doing. Yeah, it helps me see. Yeah, obviously I don't do that, neighbours. But if I wanted to replace them today, I looked into it earlier this evening. Because I've glued these bits together. They've been broken by the kids and by me jumping off things and the dog headbutting me, all sorts of things. So they're quite heavily glued. I just can't bring myself to buy another one. Not that I can't afford it. It's just completely out of order that I'll be looking at paying about 300 quid to get these frames and a half decent pair of prescription lenses. And I just don't understand why no one's burnt an optician down. Empty, no humans hurt. No one. Why aren't there riots about this? It's a complete piss take. So right, okay. So I looked into it a while ago in my own half-assed headings only way. And it turns out that there's one company called something like Cellar Luxotica, anyway, that pretty much have a monopoly in all aspects of the spectacle industry. But apparently it's not quite a monopoly. It's actually it's called an oligopoly. So it's which basically means that one market is controlled by several players, not by one player.
Which part do they control?
Right. So you'll like this bit, Paul, and you'll understand it better than I do, because they fundamentally got a vertical control over the market, over the eyewear market.
Right.
And so I'll explain why. So originally the company was called Luxotica, something like that. It's to do with luxury, I think. Luxotica. It was an Italian company which was started by a dude called Leonardo da Vecchio in 1961. Okay,
right.
And now apparently, from what I can see, it's got 80% of the eyewear market, which is not quite a monopoly, but it's not fucking far off.
Significant, isn't it?
It's good. It came from very humble beginnings. And this dude Leonardo was working out of a trailer in northeast of Italy, which was it was originally like a glass frame workshop. And then Leonardo, he grew it to be what it is today, fundamentally, I think, by being a canny bugger. But I think he was a good dude, as in I don't think he was particularly nefarious or was not. He certainly hasn't been accused like Berlusconi and a lot of other Italians have been as corrupt as all the other big players. He seems to be like, quite a genuine dude. But anyway, he grew it to what it was, and he after a while he started buying or licensing many designer brands. So he bought like Ray-Bans, Oakley's. I think he's licensed Ralph Lauren, Giorgio Armani, Dolce & Gabbana, and Chanel. So all these like designer brands. He then went out and he bought a huge amount of eyewear retailers, like Lens Crafters and Sunglasses Hut and other stuff like glasses.com, I think, online as well. Okay, then, right, so I'm talking about all the different areas of vertical relevance in the eyeglass industry. He went out and bought iMed, which is one of the largest eyewear insurers in the world. Okay, which is good. Well done. That's another area you can control. And then Luxotica, they merged with a French company called Cellar or something. So it's now called Cellar Luxotica or something.
Yeah.
They did that in 2018. And Cellar were the world's largest prescription lens manufacturer.
Right.
Okay, so I almost challenge you. Actually, no, there's one more thing they did. And then they do spend a lot of time and money lobbying, at least I can see evidence of it in America, lobbying to keep regulations and rules in their favor so they can maintain this grasp on the market. And don't answer now, but I challenge you to come up with any elements that I've missed out in the eyeglass vertical that they haven't got their mitts on. So, as I am a half-assed businessman at times, I say, nicely done, Leonardo da Vinci. That's brilliant. I've got a lot of respect for what you've done. But as a specky 4 I get, I say, absolutely get fucked. And I say this is absolutely genuine outrage. And then what I came across just before this podcast started was an article last year in the LA Times that included an interview with a whistleblower, someone who'd worked in the industry, someone who built a company up and then was bought by Luxottica. And he's 70 years old now, so clearly doesn't give a fuck. He's willing to say whatever. He's like a consultant now. And he was basically saying that due to advances in technology, even designer brand glasses with shit hot prescription lenses, so they're really thin and they're scratch proof and varifocal and all this sort of stuff, they are cheap as chips. And I'm going to quote from the LA Times article. This guy said, "You can get amazingly good frames with a Warby Parker level of quality." Now, I presume Warby Parker is a good level of quality.
Indeed.
For $4 to $8. Okay, this guy is called Butler. Butler said, for $15, you can get designer quality frames, which these Ted Bakers apparently are, like what you get from Prada. Okay, so $15 for the frames. And lenses, you can buy absolutely first-class lenses from $1.25 a piece. Okay,
Where?
So in China, these are all made in China. Okay,
so these are production costs for the component.
Yeah, that's how much I think Luxottica would buy these parts for. So these are cost price to them. So let's be generous with the cost of frames and lenses, a spot of distribution. I mean, they don't weigh very much, but a coating of marketing and general overheads. Top quality glasses cost Luxottica about $20, maybe $22. I think it would be fair to say. And they sell in this article in the US. They sell for over $800. These designs, $800. Okay, so whilst I greatly respect their right to do it, the fact that the report says Luxottica often achieves profit margins of over 1,000%, which is fucking insane, and that's what pisses me off.
I understand. I can understand why that would piss you off. I mean, as a specky myself,
yeah.
Yeah, that's intriguing. I wonder if they've also been able to extend into the software side of things about how the lenses are actually made.
What do you mean? Well, because what Ray-Ban did, part of their group, they obviously did the partnership with Meta. I think it's Meta to have the Ray-Bans with the little camera in the corner, and data and the storage and all that, and then you're going to start getting that augmented reality.
No, I mean, so the thing that makes glasses obviously unique between you and I is you get to a level of eye correction where it becomes very personal to you. So you can't just buy standard plus threes and blah blah blah. So I can understand those numbers that you described for standard +1, +3 lenses or minus whatevers. I kind of get that. But for those people that actually need lenses actually crafted, where you actually have to get them made, and all this kind of thing, the software that they use to do that, I would imagine they would. I wonder if these guys have also gone and licensed and locked down all of the software that drives the industry as well.
I would imagine so. Sorry.
No, because I remembered a few years back, I bought a set of glasses from a company that were a university spin out, and they were really, really good, but their pricing was still typical. Because the flip side is now it's got nothing to do with the cost. It's got everything to do with the perceived value. And it's got everything to do with the perceived value within the context of inverted commas normal or reasonable. right?
Yeah.
So even if I go and you or I just go and fuck it, I'm just going to buy 1,000 of these glasses at one $10 and the X number of lenses or whatever. When you get them back, you're still going to go, okay, well, what would the market withstand us paying?
Yeah.
Us charging, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it will take unless you are a true philanthropist and benevolent human being, and I'm not using the word in the way that Bernays and the Rockefellers decided to develop the idea of philanthropy, which is to buy society. But
Yeah.
if you were, unless you're one of those types of people, you would enter that marketplace, you would get that, and you would go, well, actually, I've got Ray-Bans, they're this, they're that, they're the other. I could sell them for $800, but actually, I want people to buy ours more, so we'll sell them at a discount of, I don't know, $749. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll still be party to that, but that's shocking actually to understand that exists, and that there hasn't been efforts made to intervene in that thing, in the same way that they nailed Microsoft for and Apple for and all these other things.
Well, I think there have been efforts, but there's the fact they do the lobbying. They do mergers and acquisitions very aggressively when there is a challenge on the market. They've got a really tight hold on it. It appears.
But then that's the reason why it's called the US of A, isn't it? The United States of Advertising.
Well, there is that, but it's global. I think it's certainly Europe and all that. So it's and you're saying earlier about what's the point, the breaking point when people go, oh, I'm getting off my ass. I'm going to push my ass out of this chair and I'm going to do something about it.
Right.
No one seems to give that much of a shit. Whereas, strangely, I really do. But anyway, so that was my rant.
So you're gonna start a spectacle company.
Well, you could 3D print these fuckers pretty easy. It can't be that challenging. And then but the machines that they make the production so low, the cost so low, are huge and complex. I think,
and that's where I'm wondering if they also have the licenses, or they've bought the licenses, or they bought the patents or something for those. You would imagine that this company is literally so big and so wealthy, it can pretty much go and just harvest patent harvesting and just do the right deals to lock it all down.
Exactly.
It's just another like oh, you've developed a water powered car. Come and meet me in the desert.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he tripped and fell down the stairs and he's now dead. Or actually, it was neurotoxin poison from a pufferfish, I believe.
Ooh,
but
a bit of that. Well, look, okay, so that was the rant, but it does lead me to my final piece, which it kind of joins up, and it kind of joins up with what you were saying earlier. So I've often had conversations with people. I had one in particular with a mate. It was about 5 years ago, and he was basically saying that the system's fucked. The class system is fucked. It's not fair. The people at the top are in top because they were born at the top. It's a foregone conclusion, and he's fucked. And I just felt, because I'm somewhere in the middle and very comfortable, actually, luckily enough. And I said, well, no, that's not quite right. You can't slag off capitalism unless, to the extent you have, unless you give me some sort of alternative. As I said earlier, I'm very much on this. Give me some sort of alternative. And I was like, actually, fuck that, man. Capitalism isn't all that bad, because let's look at some of the most rich, successful people in the world and where they came from. Okay, so I pulled out of my hat. I didn't know how this was going to go at the time. I pulled out Elon Musk, and I pulled out Jeff Bezos. Okay, because this guy
genius. The two, sorry, I don't know where this is going to go, but let me interject. The two most non-typical people that you could possibly pull out of the hat, whose story is layered in a way.
What do you mean by non-typical?
Well, you tell me where you think. No, sorry, I don't want to hijack your story. You carry on.
But as they came out of my mouth, I go, I don't know enough about them to know if this is a great example. And then someone said, oh yeah, but Elon Musk later. Elon Musk's dad owned an emerald mine in South Africa, so I was like, oh, he's probably pretty well off. He was fairly well off. He went to college and everything in America and all sort of stuff. As I read it, he was comfortable. And then Jeff Bezos wasn't massively comfortable. He was okay. He went to college in America, and I think he got his mum's mate gave him a bit of a leg up. But it all started in a garage. Okay, so you can dream and you can get to the top in a capitalist system. It does help if you have a bit of an accelerated start from previous financing from family or otherwise. But then that's why Luxottica, the glass people, and Leonardo del Vecchio, he had I will use him in the future. He had fucking zero head start. His dad was like he was born in like 1935 or something. His dad was like a street vegetables seller somewhere in Italy. And he died before Leo was born. His mum was quite impoverished and gave him up to the orphanage when he was 7. Okay, that's a pretty shit start, right? There's no spoons, let alone silver or otherwise, sticking out of any of his orifices. I think we would agree. And then he went into apprenticeships or like metal crafts work, and then he ended up working building the moving parts of glasses and then building glass frames. And then he started a business called Luxottica in 1961. And then over the years, between now and 2022, when he passed away in 2022 as Italy's second richest man and the world's 54th. Okay, and his net worth was about $24.1 billion when he passed away. So once I get over the fact that it's mostly his fault that my glasses are so expensive, I also go, fucking...
You've taken a quite extraordinary arc here from ranting about how you hate this person to actually how he's the ideal sort of poster child for capitalism, and actually I actually quite like the guy. Is sort of the narrative. So I'm difficulty understanding your stance on this situation, Andy. What's your conclusion to your rant? How are you able to handle your rant and exorcise those emotions when you hold such diametrically opposed positions?
Because when I'm wearing my glasses and I'm not a millionaire, I go, it's fucking out of order. It's ridiculous how much you're charging me for what should be a human right, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then when I'm like business head on, I'm like, Jesus, nice one. Fair play. Yeah. That's capitalism for you. It's not perfect, but you know, it's not the end of the world. There are cheap glasses out there. You can get cheap glasses for 30, 40 quid, okay? But they're not designer. So if you choose to be a precious tart, like I am, I must have Ted Baker or something. I must. Then I will have to pay that much, and that's fair enough as a businessman. But I mean, because he's a player basically. I respect the player. I don't like the game too much, but I respect players within it. Legendary businessman. He started from scratch, and it entirely, in my mind, to my earlier point, entirely justifies the capitalist system can work for anyone. And the other people that I've got down there, like Oprah Winfrey, she came from not very much. Larry Ellison, Oracle, from nothing. George Soros, from nothing. And J.K. Rowling from not a lot. So I'm now going to use that as my example why capitalism, until you got a better fucking answer, which you clearly don't, is the way to go.
I would say that my concern of your model that you're presenting and you're proposing is that I don't think that the capitalist model, how can I put this, works in the same way at the various levels that have been described. So the guy in I don't know, doing the Del Boy and selling stuff in the marketplace, right? The capitalist model that they operate and exist is different to the guy that runs the building merchants or a sea of builders. That model is different again to as you scale and go through these various levels and these various places. So I think that just because we can turn around and believe that there is a level of pull you up by the bootstraps, mate, and all that kind of stuff. Use your ingenuity, just get out there and graft. This idea about you work hard enough, anyone can be the president and all that shit, right? I don't believe that. I personally don't believe that at all. I believe that you get to levels, you get to situations and positions, and whether or not you progress or not has got everything to do with what you're willing to compromise and what you're willing to compromise for. Because some of those names of the people that you just described, I'm aware a little bit more of what their story is. And it's not as straightforward as that. It's not as straightforward as, oh, I'll just sell more books. Oh, I'll just sell more books. Holy fuck! All of a sudden, I've got a Department of Defense contract to do all their web server applications and all their intelligence gathering. Oh, ain't that lucky? There comes a moment in time where a transaction is done, and that's kind of been borne out by certain people that I'm aware of who have talked about some of their transactions, which we'll just leave it there. So
Okay.
I think the capitalist model is great, it's fine, good, jolly good. I don't believe that the rules that are being applied to Italian specky dude, right? When he was turning over 500,000, a million, I don't believe the rules for him then were the same as the rules when he was turning over 3 billion and lobbying government and clearly had an enormous amount of funds and wealth, as in investment funds and wealth and bank networks and people like this that are again all participating in this very situation, this very thing. Things get rather murky then.
Yeah, but that's for my point. I believe rather irrelevant, because all I'm showing is that it's possible, and therefore there is hope, and it's not completely fucked. And I'm not.
I was interested in what the terminology about what completely fucked looks like.
Well, completely fucked means that I'd say capitalism is less completely fucked than communism, for example. And it's not perfect. I could poke several 100,000 holes in it, and I could say, well, just because Del Vecchio did it, the likelihood of someone else doing it is going to be tiny, absolutely tiny, because he needed awesome combination of genetics, motivation, being an orphan perhaps, luck. All sorts of things. And I'm not contesting it's hugely unlikely, but it's still possible. And that's all I need, because, and then I started arguing with myself, well, Putin, apparently the stories of Vlad when he was younger, like fighting off rats in the hovel that he lived in, very motivational, and he's got to the top. So maybe communism isn't all that bad. But there's only one Vlad, whereas there's several, billionaires from scratch floating around at the minute.
Right.
There
Very nice. It's good to know. It's good to know that the thing that helps drive you and motivate you in the morning is to know that somewhere there is a path to billionaire status for you and anybody, should they choose to go after it with enough vigor, and the universe provides and there's so your model suggests then that that it's just about the corridor you walk and the doors that you choose to go through. You're not suggesting that there are some corridors that actually you're not allowed in, and there are some doors that actually you're not allowed through. You think that actually so in sense you kind of like presenting a meritocracy in that regard. So capitalism is the expression of a meritocracy.
No, I wouldn't go far as like the merit is rewarded in many occasions, and it depends on your how you're defining merit. Merit of being a dodgy bugger.
Merit being actually the only thing that's stopping you from becoming said billionaire, right? Is transact, is taking your journey, is taking the next step, is finding your way through it. It's sort of grafting off your own back and a bit of luck, of course, Kind of stuff. What you're not suggesting. Forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth, misinterpreted. What you're not suggesting is that the pathway to billionaire status and that level of power and control, where you can dominate an entire industry and doing all these sorts of things, the route there, right, is a route that anybody can take. You're not suggesting that the route there is a route that is only available if you make certain compromises or certain decisions at certain times. That's what I mean by meritocracy, in the sense that it can happen. Yeah, you it happened to you. You just go for it, mate. It's all good. Rather than saying that, actually, I'm sorry, have you got the right pass? Because otherwise you're not coming through this door. So, but I need to go through that door. I need to go through that door because that's the only way I'm going to meet these people and those investors and next ones. No, you. Sorry, not you. Not today.
Yeah, but okay. Well, I'd say if you can't get through that door, and that's the door you need to get through, then you're not going to be a billionaire. And I
But
don't.
is that because you can't push the door open because it's too heavy, or is it because you're not allowed to push the door open?
Oh, probably it could be a bit of everything, but being not allowed to do something is a very good reason to do it and figure out a way to do it. And I'm not saying that it's the likelihood of it happening to all the best, most hardworking, innovative, genius, disruptive, motivated, lucky bastard. They might fall down repeatedly and die in the dirt. There's, you know, I don't really care. I know that there's at least one example. So fuck off anyone who's giving capitalism a hard time.
One example is all you need to show that.
Well, it's more than they've got. They haven't even got an alternative. Oh, the system's so shit, Andy. Yeah, it's not great, but and also, have you got a better idea? No, fucking jog on. That's simple for me. So I'm glad I met Del Vecchio, and that something good came out of my unending angst about the price of my.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a oh man, I can't remember. I think it's a Pixar movie recently. They've just come out with a sequel, and it's
Inside Me.
Inside Me. Yeah, how do you know that? How do you know it's about that? How do you know it's about that?
Because I got kids, man.
So
it's not called
Inside Out. It's not called Inside Me. I just had my boss.
Oh, it's Inside Out. Sorry, okay,
it's Inside Out. But yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because Inside Out, I think the first one, it one of the messages there is that for there to be joy, there needs to be sorrow.
Okay,
yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, yeah.
That whole side of things. So, in order for you to get to a place of admiration of Del Vecchio, or whatever his name is, in order for you to get this place of admiration and it reinforcing your delight in your belief in the capitalist model, right? You actually had to start from a place of vilification and anguish. Oh shit.
Yeah,
Andy, we need to go. I need to go.
Fine.
Just had a bit of an issue with a dog doing explosive vomit, literally.
Oh God, sorry. Well, that is a lovely note to end on. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, cheers, Andy. Bye now,
brother. Cheers. The Wittering Podcast theme tune is produced by Skins. Check out his details in the podcast description.